I wish I had $1 million. Hot dog! Happy holidays again, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the top 10 favorite, and from what I certainly believe are the best performances by some of the greatest actors in film history. Yes, this is the voice of doom calling. I am starting from 10 and then filibustering my way up to number 1, and certainly so, I intend to speak in this voice throughout the whole video. No? Okay, fine, but how was I? I have certainly seen every film that is attainable, folks, of these artists, so every list that I put on here comes from the heart with a holly jolly piece of accuracy. Holy mackerel, if you haven't guessed already, folks, my goodness, it gives me so much pleasure to talk about one of my dearest, one of my most favorite actors in all of film. His name is James Stewart, or the more popular, Jimmy Stewart. Born in the smallest of small towns, Indiana, Pennsylvania, Jimmy was always fascinated by the arts ever since he was a kid. His parents didn't particularly care for their children to go into the performing arts, even though James' mother was a professional pianist. The family really wanted James to take over the family business, which was their J.M. Stewart & Company hardware store. But after his busy and accomplished time at Princeton University, where he was a fantastic athlete majoring in architecture, on top of excelling in the drama and music clubs, he went on to join the University Players in Cape Cod, Massachusetts. Among the great productions he acted in, he met his BFF, Henry Fonda, or as many called him, Hank. And after continuing their runs on Broadway, they both got their opportunities to star in Hollywood as supporting players, of course. Off they moved to LA like the humble bachelors they were, and slowly but surely, Stewart, through his 7-year MGM contract, would make amazing headway for his illustrious and truly inspirational career to come. This video, ladies and gentlemen, is really going to be more personal, just because, as stated before, James Stewart is one of my personal favorite actors, if not, honestly, my favorite actor of the golden age of Hollywood. His idealistic stance in every film he's done made me relate to him more than any other actor of the golden age of Hollywood. His sincere and sensitive voice, his vulnerability, and yet his underdog strength inspired me as a young kid to reach for the stars, just like he has for millions. Comprising this list, honestly, has been one of the most difficult, because he literally has so many fantastic performances. I could easily do a top 50, but I have to listen to Mr. Smith right here and follow the rules. I mean, I don't want to get him filibustering again. I am, of course, only doing films and not miniseries or TV appearances because, yes, that's a whole lot of TV to cover. However, a big shout out to his short-lived TV series, Hawkins, which earned him a Golden Globe, as well as his very own Jimmy Stewart Show, which was short-lived as well because of how old-fashioned it was, especially at the time of Vietnam. James Stewart has always been a beacon of hope for me, personally as an actor, as well as a human being, because of how much he did love people and how much he loved the craft of acting. So let's take a trip, ladies and gentlemen, to the top 10 best performances of the greatest everyman in cinema, James Stewart. Starting off at number 10, The Naked Spur, which out of all the films at number 10, you must be thinking, what in the world? This one? I know. It's a wild card choice. Maybe, but my dear friends, re-examine this film, as I have, if you've seen it, of course. This came out in 1953, a humbling time for Mr. Stewart, where Stewart was beginning to slightly fall in the category of a faded past movie star. But did that really happen? Oh, hell no. Jimmy Stewart was beginning to tackle real, complex, and darker characters at this time, a radical difference from his everyman persona. And of all 7 films he made with the underrated director Anthony Mann, this is by far the most effective to me. It is my dear favorite. Stewart plays Howard Kemp, a bounty hunter who will stop at nothing to bring in Ben Vandergoat to the law, played wonderfully by Robert Ryan. Stewart is just vicious in this unconventional role. His scene later on with Janet Leigh, where he is demanding to bring Ben to justice and then breaking down in front of Janet Leigh, is just extraordinary. Even though Stewart really plays such an unlikable character, it's still Jimmy Stewart. The film was nominated for the Academy Award for Best Screenplay and is often regarded as one of the greatest westerns that needs to be seen, thanks to Jimmy Stewart's thunderous and powerful portrait of a man in violent desperation. Number 9, The Shop Around the Corner. One of the perfect films to watch around this time of year, and is indeed a true classic directed by one of the masters of comedies, Ernst Lubitsch. Based on the play Parfumery, it stars Stewart as Alfred Kralik, head salesperson at the great shop around the corner, Matacek & Company, where he receives more happiness writing to his anonymous pen pal, whom he's thinking of proposing to. But things really start to go wrong when Mr. Matacek hires Clara Novak, played by fellow University Players Ensemble member Margaret Sullivan, and she's derailing his plans and his own attitude, not realizing until later that she's his anonymous pen pal. I mean, that's not giving anything away, of course. That's where more of the fun commences. The film itself is just so damn charming. It's a true ensemble piece, quite frankly, but Stewart's performance is the genuine romantic heart and soul of it. I just love this film so much, and even though Frank Morgan, as Mr. Matacek, steals the show, Stewart's sensibility and vulnerability really shine like a bright, beautiful Christmas tree. Number 8, The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. Such a great song, and a damn great epic Western. One of the best Westerns ever made in my book, and there are tons of them. Directed by the legendary John Ford, we get the famous pairing audiences were certainly waiting for. Jimmy Stewart and John Wayne playing rivals, but then become frenemies, whom grow a closer understanding of each other over time. Based on the short story by famed Western writer Dorothy Johnson, Stewart plays Senator Rance Stoddard, who comes back to the town of Shinbone with his wife, played by Vera Miles, for the funeral of Tom, played by the Doke. And then we are told through flashback how their relationship came to be, but also how Stewart grew to the high power that he has currently. And most importantly, the principles that are learned throughout their challenging time in the old American Western town of Shinbone. Stewart is just thoroughly effective and powerful here as Rance. And what's really amazing is that Rance is a peaceful, law-abiding man. He's by the book. He wants to do justice the real, lawful way. Whereas Wayne's character, which, ironically enough, is the example of the West. Things are gray, and sometimes cold-blooded murder is how things are done here. All this conflict is fueled by the evil outlaw who terrorizes the town. Liberty Valance, played viciously by Lee Marvin. Jimmy Stewart and John Wayne have phenomenal chemistry with each other, and the whole John Ford stock company in this picture are excellent as usual. This has always been called one of the greatest of John Ford's, and I totally agree. But it's still appreciated and loved, thanks again to the real and genuine spirit of Stewart's performance. He may be doing things by the book, but he's not a coward. And when Valance is defeated, people look at Rance as the hero. But if you've seen it, you know a great little Rashomon moment definitely opens things up and asks us, the audience, to truly cope with man's natural desire for violence. Stewart absolutely brings Rance wonderfully to life. Number 7, Rear Window. Oh my goodness. Truly a fantastic and classic romantic thriller, I may say. helmed by the master of suspense, Alfred Hitchcock. I covered this film indeed on my video of Alfred Hitchcock, which you can find right here. Thanks very much, guys. I love you. But the main focus is Stewart as L.B. Jeffries, or Jeff, actually, a photographer confined to a wheelchair after breaking his leg. So he spends his time just observing his neighbors. At the backdrop of this, he has a fashion consultant girlfriend, Lisa, played gorgeously by future princess Grace Kelly, who is looking to have a more serious relationship with Jeff. But he's just not that much of a commitment type, so to speak. Things get even more interesting when one night he hears a scream and looks across the street at one neighbor's apartment and grows the suspicion that the tenant across the street murdered his wife. Slowly but surely, after the police can't convict the man, Jeff starts to uncover the truth, leading to such a tense and thrilling result. Jimmy Stewart is absolutely incredible as Jeff. This role requires someone who is truly a professional, who can keep you thrilled with little to no movement. And the partnership of Hitchcock and Stewart honestly make it an experience not to be missed, ever. Just the long sequences of silent observation, watching Stewart, watching his neighbors in these moments are just so captivating. I can't tell you how crazy spine-tingling that moment is when Lisa sneaks into Torvald's apartment to get the ring, and Jeff and his nurse Stella are watching across the street, while Torvald unexpectedly shows back up and finds her. Grace Kelly is so great in this scene, trying her best to give the best possible excuse and reason, and in a second, Torvald grabs her to get the answer, even more so, and then he starts to get violent. Stewart's silent reactions is everything we feel. On top of the light going out and him shaking to the core, pleading to Stella, "Oh, what do I do?" It's masterclass acting right there, which keeps this Academy Award nominated classic among the best. Number 6, Anatomy of a Murder. I honestly wish this was much, much higher, personally, because Stewart's Academy Award nominated performance here for Best Actor is one of the greatest leading performances in a courtroom drama, period. Directed by famed auteur and tyrant Otto Preminger, Stewart plays Paul Biegler, a small-town lawyer brought in on a murder trial to defend Army Lieutenant Fred Mannion, played wonderfully by Ben Gazzara, accused for murdering a bartender who may or may not have raped his wife, played by Lee Remick. Based on the #1 bestseller of the same name, this film was very controversial when it came out because it was one of the first films to use such wild terms such as rape, bitch, slut, sperm, and the big one of all, panties. It is kind of funny at first to hear Jimmy Stewart in a courtroom saying, "Oh yes, Your Honor, her panties." But it works just wonderfully. And being released in 1959, it totally was a great choice for Jimmy Stewart to take this role. Once again, he was already riding high on riskier and darker roles at this time, so doing a courtroom drama at this magnitude was really another notch in his range, no doubt. I am personally a sucker for courtroom dramas as well, especially when they are done so damn well like this. And at being almost 3 hours long, there is not a dull moment in sight. He can easily guide us through the playing field of court, not to mention his amazing piano playing skills with the Duke Ellington. That's such a great sequence. Director Otto Preminger has said many times years later how he regretted not working with Stewart much more because he absolutely loved working with Stewart. And doesn't everybody? Number 5, Harvey. One of the most quintessential Jimmy Stewart performances, no doubt, with Jimmy at his sweetest and endearing, playing Elwood P. Dowd. Let him give you one of his cards. He is an amiable, good-hearted, middle-aged man who is so darn excited for everyone to meet his new best friend, Harvey, a 6'3" rabbit, but really a puka, a creature of Celtic mythology. How about that? So they go bar hopping, and everyone is just confused at Elwood, especially his good-hearted sister, It is incredibly funny and heartwarming, but remember the serious undertones this movie has, with talking about alcoholism, mental illness. It does get pretty deep, but paints the beautiful picture of a lonely man having someone faithful and loyal like Harvey, even if they could just be a creation. It's rejuvenating. It's that childlike faith that we all want back in our lives. Once again, this is just a performance tailor-made for Jimmy Stewart, even though he didn't originate the role of Elwood when it premiered on Broadway, but he did take over for Frank Fay while he was on vacation, which led the studio in casting him for the film. Jimmy Stewart is so lovely here that this was yet another role that became tied to him for the rest of his life, literally by reprising the role in a Broadway revival in 1970 to glowing reviews, as well as a made-for-TV adaptation in 1972, and then again at the London Prince of Wales Theatre in 1975. Director Henry Coster, of course, stated he had an absolute blast working with Stewart, as he brought a level of professionalism that made him fall in love with movie making all over again. Number 4, The Philadelphia Story. Stop the presses. Yes, I am a fella who loves Jimmy Stewart here in his only Academy Award-winning performance for Best Actor as Macaulay Connor here, a begrudging tabloid reporter who is looking to get his next big story on the new marriage between George Kittredge and Tracy Lord, not knowing that he himself would end up falling in love with Tracy, played amazingly by Katharine Hepburn. I know many people live by it to this day, even Stewart himself, that his Oscar was recompensed for his performance in another film that came out the previous year, in which, yeah, I can agree. His Oscar win marked him as the youngest recipient at 32 years old at the time. I also agree with Stewart himself when he said the Oscar should have gone to his good BFF, Henry Fonda, for his performance as Tom Joad in The Grapes of Wrath. But, let bygones be bygones, folks. Let's not forget his absolute hilarity as Macaulay. He is so damn funny in this. He honestly heightens this film to a grander and classier level than what you would expect. The romanticism, where he declares his love for Tracy. Oh, there is magnificence within you, Tracy. And the way you stand there and the way you walk, you've got fires banked down within you, hearth fires and holocausts. Or especially the hilarious scene of Macaulay in a drunken excitement singing C.K. Dexter Haven. Oh, it's a good level. Cary Grant actually cracked a smirk in the scene because of how much fun Stewart had with his drunkenness. The hiccup he adds in that silent stare was completely unscripted, which prompted Grant's natural impulse of, excuse me, huh? Oh, sorry. It's comic gold. Stewart absolutely shows a comic side of him in this that I think was just perfect. We've absolutely seen a piece of it in Vivacious Lady years earlier, but here he is as a sly, smarmy asshole. Let's be honest. Well, everyone in this movie are assholes. Let's be honest. But that's what makes it fun, isn't it? Some say it's overrated, but I'd say give yourself some more time to appreciate the brilliance of Jimmy Stewart's superior and brilliant comedic timing. Number 3, Vertigo. Once again, I wish this could be higher. I honestly do. This film is one of Hitchcock's absolute best, a true masterpiece, with Stewart leading the charge and brain and soul exercise for all of us. I can't tell you how his performance as Scotty Ferguson honestly made me reconsider the caliber of Jimmy Stewart, the actor, even though the majority of artists completely disagree. Released in 1958, Stewart still riding high on different roles thanks to the Anthony Mann westerns and others. He again was cast against type as Detective John Ferguson, Scotty to his friends, where, after a rooftop chase gone fatally wrong, he develops vertigo with his fear of heights. The key thing to help him may be experiencing another emotionally shocking event. He's retired at this point, but an old classmate hires him to investigate his wife, Kim Novak, because she be acting a little funny. and thus investigating her, taking bigger chances at saving her life. He gets to know her and falls in love with her. But she's still suffering mentally and emotionally, supposedly. So he does what he can to help her by taking her to the bell tower on account of a nightmare. And another horrible thing happens, which I just can't spoil. I'm sure there's plenty of you that have seen Vertigo for sure, but I just can't bring myself to spoil it. After 3 previous collaborations with Hitchcock, Stewart is the perfect choice for this character. But at the same time, he is diabolically relentless. When it comes to the film's climax back at the bell tower, it's unreal the transformation is on Stewart. It's terrifying, honestly. But at the same time, this whole picture has taken us through a mindset of desperate love, liberation, and manipulation. It's greatly soul-sucking that it becomes violent, which then becomes deadly and tragic. It truly blows my mind that the film's box office failure was heavily blamed on Stewart because he was apparently, quote-unquote, too old for this role. Not fair at all. Can you believe even the film's own director, Alfred Hitchcock, said that? The film was obviously way ahead of its time, which is why it's claimed as a bona fide masterpiece now, with Jimmy Stewart's performance marked in many critic circles today as one of the greatest performances of all time. Number 2, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. One of the greatest classics ever to come to cinema, and yes, one of the greatest performances by an actor, if I do say so myself. This was the second collaboration between Stewart and Capra. Capra knew instantly that Stewart was the best man for the job because of his ability to speak and embody the everyman. There are so many moments I just absolutely love in this film, especially the whole montage of Mr. Smith touring DC and making the grand final stop at the Lincoln Memorial. It's just so easy to see the true and idealistic beauty of our country through Jimmy Stewart's eyes. How about that scene where he and Miss Saunders, played wonderfully by Jean Arthur, are writing his new bill, and he has that beautiful line, "Liberty is too precious a thing to be buried in books, Miss Saunders. Men should hold it up in front of them every single day of their lives and say, 'I'm free to think and to speak. My ancestors could and I can, and my children will.'" Such a beautiful scene. When he realizes there's a whole underbelly of corruption happening and why he was appointed senator, as the press is turning him into a buffoon, he realizes he is fighting a machine he simply can't beat. But with the newly inspired coaching from Miss Saunders, he is ready to take on the beast of the Senate with the classic filibuster. Oh, God, do we love every single minute of that sequence, don't we? The sequence of him throughout the whole filibustering is just thrilling brilliance. To make a long story short, friends, the last 10 minutes of this film are nothing short of extraordinary. His voice is clearly shot in his last battle, and God, we are hanging on right alongside him. It's so moving as the Senate is finally paying attention to him, and he has that beautiful monologue, "Just get up there with that lady that's on top of this Capitol dome. That stands for liberty. Take a look at this country through her eyes if you really want to see something." The last beat where he's looking at all the letters Taylor and Payne forged, and his broken body is reaching to Saunders for more help. He feels completely done, and I just love this next moment where he lifts his head and sees the president of the Senate, played by Academy Award nominee Harry Carey, and the president gives him a small smile, and through his brokenness, Senator Smith feels a glimpse of hope. He was given a wild card of help from the president that catapults Stewart in his last great fight to lift the morale of Senator Payne to do the right thing, whom he loved and admired since he was a kid. His last stand shouting, "I'm going to stay right here and fight for this lost cause, even if this room gets filled with lies like these. And the Taylors and all their armies come marching into this place. Somebody will listen to me." It is inspirational. Stewart took this role so dead seriously, devoting himself to this role, and surely enough it paid off, gloriously resulting in his first Academy Award nomination for Best Actor. And many have said he should have won it, and I would agree. I do love Robert Donat in Goodbye, Mr. Chips, and he deserved it too. But the electricity from James Stewart's performance is one of those that lasts for generations to come. Now, folks, here are some honorable mentions. The Spirit of St. Louis, which by no means, guys, let's be honest, it's not a terrific movie. Directed by Billy Wilder, telling the story of Charles Lindbergh, which was one of Jimmy Stewart's childhood heroes in actuality. Stewart fought hard to get this role because of how much he truly admired Lindbergh as a kid, and also being a fighter pilot during World War II. However, it's clear how much older he was for the role of Lindbergh. The film really didn't do too well, but regardless, from one actor to another, it's such a wonderful thing and a meaningful thing to get to play a hero of yours in film. And Stewart certainly has some lovely scenes in this, which is usual. You can't take it with you. Another Frank Capra classic, which was Stewart and Capra's first partnership together. Based on the Hart and Kaufman play, of course, this Oscar-winning classic is pure Capra, with Jimmy Stewart adding so much of the heart to it as Tony Kirby, which I just always love. My goodness, the dinner scene where he's saying to Jean Arthur, "Oh, I think I feel a scream coming." "Oh, wait, what? Yeah, yep. I feel a scream coming. It's in my throat." No, please don't scream. And then, a little gem of Jimmy Stewart that never gets old. Rope, the first collaboration of Stewart and Hitchcock, which I still love and appreciate to this day. I really don't understand why not many people like this movie that much. This came out in 1948 after Stewart's service in the military, when he was still trying to stay relevant. And the first partnership with Hitch is still a powerhouse performance. It, of course, is like a valiant return to theater, being a play adaptation, and the long, continuous takes demands Stewart to stay in control. And I remember first seeing this as a kid and still being captivated by Stewart as the professor who suspects foul play by the students. Shenandoah, another wonderful performance. Why it's an honorable mention here is because this Jimmy Stewart Western is a family favorite of mine personally. I remember the many Sunday mornings where my mom would have this film on when we would eat our eggs, bacon, potatoes, and toast for breakfast together. And it's one of those cherished traditions on Sundays where Westerns are truly king in my book. Shenandoah was probably the most played film on a Sunday, and every time we would watch it, I'd find something nuanced and different in his humbling performance of a man determined to avenge his sons, whom are being torn apart because of the Civil War. Yeah, before Mel Gibson was doing that in The Patriot, Jimmy Stewart was doing it, but much classier. Also, what's very interesting and tragic is that 5 years later, after this film came out in 1965, Jimmy Stewart did lose one of his adopted sons in the Vietnam War. So in retrospect, it does bring us closer to Jimmy Stewart's powerful mission in this film. Winchester 73, the very first Western that spawned the new Jimmy Stewart post-World War II. Though I love the Naked Spur more, Winchester 73 is a close second of all the Jimmy Stewart and Anthony Mann Westerns. God, all those Westerns are so damn good. This was such an important film for Stewart, as his films post-World War II were flops, and he was worried about his career as an actor being demolished, as stated before. But Anthony Mann saw that power Stewart had, without a doubt, and cast him as Lynn McAdam, a tough marksman who wins the famous Winchester rifle, but is stolen from him and starts the hunt for the rifle, encountering the many characters within the West. It gave a whole new life to Stewart that shocked and excited existing Stewart fans and gained even more Stewart fans, even to someone watching it for the very first time in this modern day and age. Movies like this kept him at the top of the box office poll. Number 1, It's a Wonderful Life. Okay, I'm going to try to keep myself together and not fall apart here. This film is not only my favorite Christmas movie. I'll let you in on a little secret of mine, if you didn't know already. This is my favorite movie of all time. Adapted and directed by his go-to director and friend, Frank Capra. The timeless tale of George Bailey's Odyssey during the most wonderful time of the year is, to this day, the greatest Christmas classic you'll ever find. It is without a doubt his golden statue of a performance that keeps me inspired every holiday season and all throughout the year. Just look at every sincere and moving moment between he and Donna Reed in one of the most beautiful phone call moments when he doesn't want any plastics or ground floors and he doesn't want to get married ever. Or when the market crash happens and he takes upon himself to help the townspeople from his building and loan. The montage of George coming back home exhausted every day, feeling his dreams are slipping away, and then his prayer at the bar. The magnified zoom Capra gives him while he's ever so silently praying, "Show me the way. I'm at the end of my rope. Please show me the way." I'm trying really not to tear up myself because it is so heartbreaking and so real. It sticks with you forever. This was an actual breaking point for Stewart because this was the first film Stewart made after his service in the military during World War II, where he literally thought of giving up acting. He just didn't know how he would be able to come back in the industry after such an ordeal during the war. I mean, Stewart has claimed many times that his experience serving his country during World War II was the most rewarding experience he's ever had. But at the same time, his family saw it, and he knew deep down he was going through PTSD. George Bailey is such an iconic hero that I've always aspired to be, and Jimmy Stewart's performance as the richest man in town made that real to me. For his amazing work, he was only nominated for the Academy Award for Best Actor here. And I think it is an absolute travesty he did not win, having Frederick March's performance in Best Years of Our Lives receiving the statuette. And even though his performance is fantastic, no question, but that Oscar belonged to Jimmy Stewart. It's a Wonderful Life really does have the last laugh, doesn't it? Being watched every year for 24 hours a day sometimes, all December, and inspiring the dreamers and givers and all of us. It is very, very clear to understand why Jimmy Stewart believed that this film, maybe not the role, but this film, of all the impactful films he's made, this was his favorite. Have you guys noticed that in every film of Jimmy Stewart's I've talked about, every director has said that they've enjoyed every minute working with him? The same is absolutely said about every one of his co-stars as well, because he was that much of a genuine spirit on set, and we don't get many actors like that anymore. The man had so many amazing accomplishments, between being an Academy Award-winning actor, later receiving his honorary Oscar by dear friend Cary Grant in 1985, the recipient of the Kennedy Center Honors in 1983, inducted into the Hall of Fame of Greatest Western Performances of the National Cowboy and Western Heritage Museum, earning the Presidential Medal of Freedom, being a highly decorated war hero, reaching the rank of a colonel, a highly giving humanitarian, his museum in his own hometown of Indiana, Pennsylvania, where at his dad's hardware store, his Oscar for a Philadelphia Story sat right there in the front window. On top of being a loving and devoted husband to his wife Gloria, being an amazing father, and other hundreds and hundreds of admirable things. You know what I also love? His personal politics never bled into his work, because his personal politics were personal. I thank God for artists like Jimmy Stewart, as he always was and is the shining example of a sensitive but strong man. His definition of the power of movies has inspired me immensely. He said, "If we do a performance and a movie well, and people can remember moments of them for years and years to come, we're giving them pieces of time that they'll never forget." And by God, he has given us millions of pieces of time to cherish forever. Attaboy, Clarence. Well, tell me, my friends, do you agree with any of my picks? What are your favorite performances by the richest man in town? Please share in the comments below. It'll be the greatest Christmas gift ever I'll ask for. If you like this, I dare say, please click like and be sure to subscribe and tell all your friends. Ring that bell because teacher says every time a bell rings, the Classic Film Lover's Guide gets his wings. Huh? Sorry, I couldn't help it, you guys. Thank you so very much for watching, and Merry Christmas! And a Happy New Year.